Yeah, so we have reached to a point that there is a lot of concept we have learned so far, and we have covered almost 80% of the concept in above RESTful programming. Of course, and there are new topics will be coming every 3 months in above RESTful programming model. So that you should be very active to check for every 3 months and update yourself in above RESTful programming model. But whatever we learned so far is pretty much very enough. I mean, very much enough for you to understand what are the new concepts that we are going to introduce in each release, that is for every 3 months. Yeah, the foundation is very strong, I would say. So far, whatever we learn, you should be good to start. So one thing I would like to mention before we start this session. So I have been seeing a common issue among all the participants when they're creating the Fiori applications. That is, when we create application which contains item data related stuff. Suppose I am displaying a list of item details. Sorry, purchase order details. On click of purchase order details, and many of the people are not able to see the item data. So one problem might be, so the common mistake that everyone is doing is, for suppose if I consider my item, sorry, purchase order consumption view, let me open that one. I just wanted to let everybody knows, many people make, in future also may make this mistake. So I just wanted to show everything is good. Okay, so before you consume the service, so in above RESTful programming model, you have to first create a projection on top of it. Okay, so projection is compulsory. It's not compulsory, but that is the rule that we need to follow, because at the final consumption view, so at the interface view that is ready for consumption. Okay, so this is the Rishi purchase document. So far whatever we need for our application specific details, everything relies in this particular CDS view. So there is nothing further that we need to do. So that means this interface view is ready for consumption. So for this, we created a consumption view as a projection. Okay, so if you look at the above RESTful programming development flow that we have already discussed in the beginning, so we start with the interface view. On top of that, we will also create a projection on top of our CDS view. Also, behavior projection also we do. Okay, so that is second layer. This is the second layer, projection view. So here, when we create the whatever the line item reference that people are creating, let me go to the purchase document report. So you see items is a line item reference that we are trying to give. So if I go back to the metadata extension, this is the association that people are mentioning. Okay, so that is fine. So when we mention this association, we have to be thorough that okay, this association is pointing to our consumption view of the item as well. Okay, so let's see this example. So we have this one. Let me open, which is having a projection. Okay, so our projection view, we have this item reference. So this is the one you are giving in the annotations as a line item reference. So this item should be called, this item's association should be called, and this must be pointing to our consumption view of the item view. So then only the metadata function file that we added for this CDS view will be considered. So many of the people are giving the association which is pointing to interface view, not the projection view. Sorry, not the consumption view. So that's the problem. Here also you need to mention, so it is redirected to the parent as well. So please refer to these CDS views so that you will not face that issue. And one more issue is vendor data they are not able to show in the other tab. So the example that I given vendor data is just for an example sake of the simplicity. Usually when we want to display the item data, display data under tab, it always should have a cardinality more than 1. That means 0 to star or 1 to star. So the association which are related to, which are having the cardinality 0 to star or 1 to star would be able to show up in the tab. If it is having 0 to 1 or 1 to 1 association, they will not be shown. For example, if I look at my purchase items here, if you look at, say, vendor actually contains only one record. Okay, so Initially, if you define this as 1, this will not show up under the tab. So we have to change the cardinality just for the sake of simplicity to understand how we can display the data under a tab. Okay, so you can take, suppose if you look at an example like we have a sales order details, right? Sales order, we have sales order items, schedule lines as well. So schedule lines is the cardinality which contains 1 to star or 0 to star. Okay, so 1 to 1 or 0 to 1 cardinality will not show up under the tab. So these are the two things please keep in mind. Okay, now let's get started with today's session. What is the agenda for today and what we are going to discuss further in the next week as well. So as per the schedule, so right now we are a little bit behind the schedule, but I don't want to rush things, so I will take things slowly. So last week I agree it was a little dosage. So this week, this week and the next week I'll take things very slowly. So I don't want to make rush. So once we finish this course, you should be confident enough to understand each and every concept, and also you should get time to practice for yourself as well. Okay, so we are left with one thing as part of our course. Sorry, two things. One is understanding validations and determination, and also we haven't looked at managed scenario. So far, whatever we discussed is unmanaged scenario. Hope you are aware what exactly the managed and unmanaged scenario so far. So unmanaged scenario, where we use our existing business logic, you might have observed in our examples that we have discussed, we have used above function modules within the create, update, delete functionalities, right? So but in managed scenario, the CUD operations, that is create, update, delete operation, will be taken care by the system. So we do not have to worry about the logic. So whenever you want to create transactional apps from the scratch, that means there is no business logic exist, and you want to develop a fresh applications using above RESTful programming model. So this is the best suited scenario for this is managed scenario. So let's start with what exactly managed scenario. So we will go for the scenario if there is a need to create completely new transactional app from scratch. So that means we do not have existing business logic to reuse. This is one scenario. So in this scenario, as a developer, you do not have to worry about update logic, right? Create, delete, update, and everything. So all you have to do is focus on the business logic. So what are the business logic? The business logic is nothing but we do some validations, right? So in every application we do validations, and we have application specific actions like that we have seen, like set status to update or close, set status to close, and these are the kind of validations are also actions that we can define. So as a developer, I just need to focus on my business logic without worrying about the code operations. So that is the advantage that I get here in managed scenario. So how does behavior definition looks for managed? So we have seen unmanaged, we have defined the behavior definition for unmanaged scenario, but how does it look for managed scenario? Let's have a look at the example. So first thing is, so we need to mention that this is a behavior definition we are defining for. This is a serious view, which is the Rishi purchase order validate determination demo underscore u. So this is the serious view that I have created. So we'll see further. For this serious view interface view, I'm creating a behavior definition. So initially I'm mentioning, okay, this is a managed implementation. As usual, we'll have a behavior pool where this is the class where we implement the business logic. So here we do not have to worry about create, update, delete. There is no logic as a developer that you need to do. Now under third line, define behavior for which interface view that you're creating this behavior definition. So far this is common except managed. In unmanaged we give it as a unmanaged. Here we give it as a managed. In the fourth line, this is a new thing that is come up. So here we need to mention, okay, you are performing code operations, so where exactly these details should be stored. So there should be a table behind this, right, that we have already working on. So we need to mention the persistent table here, which is Rishi PO.doc. So whatever the changes that you perform will directly store in this particular table, because the code operations are taken care by the system itself. So system should know where exactly these details should be inserted. Okay, this is one. The next one is the lock master. So this is compulsory as well when you are defining the behavior definition. So what exactly lock master? So we haven't seen any example on locking functionality except e-tag. Okay, so we discussed there are two different locks available. So one is pessimistic locking and optimistic locking. So as I explained earlier, pessimistic locking comes under e-tag. Okay, two users will be able to edit at the same time, but whoever made the changes first will be taken care. The second user who have made the changes will be ignored. So people can be able to edit at the same time, but one should be able to save and the other changes will be ignored based on the timing, like who inserted first, so who updated the data first. That is a pessimistic locking. The drawback in this locking is, suppose imagine you are working on 100 line items. Okay, so both users logged in at a time 100 line items, and the first user is keep on making his operation changes and everything on 100 line items. The other user also doing the same thing. Okay, so both are spending the time on the same purchase document. So the first user has committed the changes and he has closed the application. He was happy that everything is fine, but the other user did not know that okay, this is already changed by other user, my changes will be ignored. He doesn't not aware of this. This is a pessimistic locking. So just a second please. Sorry, this is a optimistic locking. So the other person is still be editing the data, and when he finally saves the data, it will be ignored. So what all of the efforts that he has put on till that point is waste. So that is a optimistic locking. So we should be, in order to avoid that, we have a pessimistic locking in ABAP as well, which is we have NQ DQ function module that comes under pessimistic locking. So if one user editing, so other user will not be able to edit the same object. So they have to wait until all the changes are committed and the lock is released. Then only they will be able to work on it. That is pessimistic locking. So optimistic locking comes under e-tag. So if you want to implement optimistic locking, e-tag you have to use. We have already given an example in the previous section how to implement e-tag. Okay, I have shown the example also, and the solution also was given. Now the lock master in manager scenario, so this is also be handled by the framework. So you do not have to worry about locking. This is pessimistic locking, lock master. That means if one user is working on a purchase document, other user cannot work on the same purchase document. So that is why you need to define this is the lock master, this is the root. For this, the locking functionality will be handled by the system itself. So two users cannot edit at the same time. Two different users. So up to 5th line, that is it. So e-tag, if you want to implement, you can. As usual, what are the functionality you would like to enable? Create, update, delete. And if you want to include validations or determinations, you can include. So we'll discuss about one example on validation, and also I'll give one exercise on determination, how to implement. So if you know validations, the similar thing you can do for determination, but the way we define the property in the behavior definition will change. That's it. And as usual, and 15th lines, we have mapping for the database table. This we already know. If you define a mapping here in the business logic, you do not have to worry about mapping line by line. You just need to use mapping from entity. So these are the things that we discussed. So managed frameworks take off code operations. Developer will focus on business logic and implemented using actions, validations, etc. So these are the things that we need to write code explicitly. So code operation will be taken care. So persistence, we have to mention the DB table, lock master. So we have to determine that this should support direct locking. And validation, if you want to provide, you can give. So validation is an explicitly executed function that checks the consistency of an entity instance. That means, for example, here you can see the example that we are going to discuss. Validate status. What are the status that I'm giving on the application? That should be a valid. That means that status should present in my status table, or else it is an invalid status. So that is what it's saying. So the consistency of the entity instances belong to the business object. Determination also executed explicitly executed function. So what are the business logic that you write on change of any modification to a field? If you want to calculate something, you can use determination. Okay. So let's start with the managed scenario, and then we'll see an example with validation as well. Okay, first let's focus on our CDS model, because this is a completely new application. Okay, but we will use the existing CDS views. So do not worry about that. We have to create more CDS views and all. Okay, somebody asking what is a persistent table. Okay, again I'm mentioning. So persistent table, as I mentioned earlier, whatever the CUD operations like create, update, delete operation that we perform on the application will be taken care by the framework. That means it will insert the data, whatever you updated at the Fiori level. And we don't have to explicitly call our BAPI function modules or anything, because this is, we are starting from a scratch. There is no business logic exist. This is a very fresh application. So persistent table, so whenever we insert update data, so this persistent table should be specified here. So whatever the data that we are mentioning, entering the Fiori level, that will be stored in this particular database table. So this is the database table we are updating in unmanaged scenario as well, if you remember. Okay. Okay, now let's start with the managed scenario. So far any doubts? I just wanted to take quick question. Move forward creating a managed scenario example.
Actually, so can we have more than one persistent table here?
See, purchase document is a header table. So you want to insert in a one table, right? And if you have item data, so we'll all anyway define another behavior definition for item view. So there you'll specify the item persistent table. Clear?
Yeah, okay. So you mean to say like we have to create multiple behaviors, right? Define behaviors for each table.
Yes, that is how we have done, right, in the unmanaged scenario also. So each interface view will have its own definition, behavior definition. One behavior definition, within that we can create the behavior for other entities.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Anyone else, please? Okay, let's move on with an example. So the first step, what I'm going to do, this will be a fresh application. So for that, we need to have a simple model. So I'll just explain you. I have already created this CDS views because we already know how to create these CDS views. So I'll skip this part, but I'll explain what are the steps that we need to follow. First thing is we have already purchased total price interface view, where we have, if you can observe, I receive purchase total price. So I'm taking this CDS view, reusing this CDS view, and I will create another interface view on top of this, which is Zirishi purchase order validation determination demo underscore M or U. So let me open that one. Okay, this is the root view that I have created on top of this one, purchase document total price. So there is no association I have defined, so just I'm taking a simple root node which does not have any child or anything. Okay, just to make it simple. So I directly created on top of this one. and we'll create a projection as well on top of this. So if I open that one, hope you guys find, because I don't want to again go create the series view because we already know how to work on this. So I created the projection on top of my root view, which is GRC validate. So I have added all the annotations exactly that we have created, how we have created for the purchase document application in previously for the transaction app, which is unmanaged scenario. I'm doing the same thing, nothing complex, but without any associations. So for this also we have defined the metadata extension, how our purchase document should appear. So these are the first 3 steps that we have to do. You create a interface view on top of our existing purchase document total price, and you create a consumption view on top of it, and you create a metadata file. So how the data should appear in the list, like line item annotations, field groups, whatever that we want when we navigate to the object page. So this is how our CDS view model looks. So we have a total price, on top of that we have interface view and a consumption view. So coming to behavior definition. So here we need to be careful how we are going to define the behavior. Okay. So let's go back to our behavior definition. ZIPO receive valid demo. Okay, so we have to mention that this is a managed implementation, and what is a class which implements the functionalities related to validations or anything. And we have to also mention this is for this CDS view, which is GIRC pure validation, and what is the persistent table. So if I navigate here, I can see this is my actual table that I am so far working on, right? So whatever the code operation happens should come and sit in this particular database table. So that's the reason we need to mention the persistence table. So once you mention that, you have to also mention the lock master. So if I just uncomment this, so you will get an error saying that so the behavior definition is managed, so which means that every entity must be flagged either as lock master or lock dependent. That's the reason. So we have to, for managed scenario it is compulsory. So for the unmanaged it is not compulsory. So managed it is compulsory because the locking is handled by the system. So we have to mention that this root view should support locking by specifying this property lock master. So you can observe in the error there is also one more new term you can observe. So lock master, that we are familiar. What about lock dependent? So that means if there is association and you want to provide the locking functionality for that as well, when you define the behavior. So if I want to define the behavior for my item view, here also I can do that, right? So we have already seen how we can do for item view as well. Behavior for ZI or SH. I think there is no item view because we haven't created. So similarly, how you have implemented for this one, you can also specify the item view here, and you have to mention, since this is a child item, sorry, child view, child interface view, for this you have to mention lock dependent. That means this is dependent on the header lock because these are two interrelated. So there we have to mention like lock dependent. And we also mention the association which is related to that particular. Previously it was like what is the common field between these two things. Okay, so in the earlier versions, when you define item view, when you define a behavior for the item view as well, you have to mention log dependent for the child item so that it will applicable for item as well. So there you used to mention what was the common field in the old versions features. But with introduction of new features, here you just need to mention the association which is pointing to the header. So if I look at my header item view, purchase document header item view, so there we also mention which is redirecting to parent, right? So that is the association we need to mention here. So that we are not showing. So just to explain what is log dependent. So log dependent is specific to the child items. When you define, you have to mention the association. So log master is necessary. So authorization is also similar. So if you want to implement authorization on top of behavior, you can also do that. So you can refer to the examples. I will also forward some links in the SAP help documentation, so you can see these examples as well. So e-tag master, we are already aware that we already discussed. So create, update, delete, we'll specify, and we have to mention what is the key field which is not supposed to be updated by the user. So which is purchase document, right? So forget about validation for now. Okay, so validation and these things, field read only we are also already know. So if you want to make certain fields read only, during update we have to mention like this, so that changed by created by currency fields will be updated by us. Okay, so this is something. And anyway, mapping is already know. So if you map directly this, what are the fields that are related to the database table will be mapped directly. So once I activate this, so I'm not talking about validation yet, but we'll discuss. Now if I move to my behavior pool, I'll click on F3 here. So validation we haven't discussed. So my container class will look blank because I haven't specified anything. Okay. Right now it supports only code operation. There are no validations mentioned here. So that's the reason initially my class will be empty. That means there will be no validation status method or this method. So initially my local types methods, this section will be empty. So you do not see anything. It will be like this only initially. Okay. Now as usual we create the service definition for this one. So whatever we have created so far, we have just enabled create, update, delete functionalities for our managed implementation. Now if I go back to my services, so in order to consume the service we have to define the first service definition, so that we already know. So at the step 6, create service definition and service binding to consume the service. So whatever the views that you would like to expose here, you just need to mention them, and on top of this you need to create the binding. So once you create the binding, so here you will just navigate to, so if you want to preview the data, so you can just select the main consumption view, click on preview. Log in with your credentials, click on log on. So these are the annotations that we have already added in the consumption view for our view. Whatever that we have created in the unmanaged scenario, the same metadata I have used. I just copied into a different metadata file. So you can see, you can navigate to the data. So it will directly support edit and updates. If I click on edit and I change status to 2, which is, let me change this one, priority to 2, which is medium. So click on save. Changes will be saved. When I go back here and I can see which is medium here, whatever that I have just changed. So I haven't done any business logic to update this, right? So whereas unmanaged we have used update scenario, everything. So here the system will take care of update and delete as well. So we haven't, without any business logic. So now let's talk about the validation. Any doubts so far? Please let me know if you have any doubts so far. We'll move to the validation part. Okay, I think we are good. Let's move on. Now let's consider a scenario. So first thing, we need to understand how to implement the validation. So we need to add the below property at the behavior definition. So we mentioned validation and the validation name and when it should happen. So these are called the trigger condition. Okay. So on save, validation status will be applicable. So we are mentioning that this validation should trigger on save for which field you are actually performing this validation. Right? I'm performing the validation for my purchase status. So that whatever the value that is updated by the user, that will be sent back to the, that we can able to read within the method. This is purchase or status, whatever entered by the user by reading the entity. So I will show you. And yeah, so next thing is, once you define the validation, you have to implement the validation functionality in the behavior pool. So how do we validate? So we have to implement the method in our behavior pool. If I go back to navigate to our behavior pool, in the local types, what I will do is I'll mention the method name that is taking care of executing this logic. So the next syntax is for validate on save. So we are mentioning that this would happen on save. Importing keys. What exactly this happen is, when you click on the validation, suppose on save, you will receive a table with keys. So key is nothing but on which instance you are actually working. That means we are working on the purchase order document. So that purchase order document will be received in this method. So you take care of that purchase document and do whatever the required functionality that needs to be done. Okay, so let's start with this one. So let's look at the first step. Okay, so read the current instance data. So that is from GIRC Pure Validate Demo. So because this is a root entity of our business object, so why do we need to read the current instance data? So let's suppose, so let me activate this one first. I'll keep a breakpoint and you will understand. So I'll go back to our application, so which is, I will work on this one. So we are validating the status. So let's say I have provided 23, so which is not a valid one, so 67 or whatever. And click off save. My breakpoint is triggering. That means my validation is active. Okay, so on save, my validate status method is getting triggered so that I can work on the current instance. If I look at the local parameters, so three things we need to remember. So once you validate that whether it is a actual status existing in the database or not, so we have to raise the exception, right? Raise the message. So where exactly you need to raise? First thing is you have to mention the failed key. So in here, purchase document is a failed key. So you have to append the purchase document value to this failed internal table, which is invisible parameter, so which is a returning parameter, exporting parameter. And then you have to exactly show what exactly the message you would like to show it in the user interface. So this is the exporting parameter that you need to consider. So you have to append the data whatever it is required to this report. So failed is the one which holds which instance you are working on, which instance is failed. Reported is a place where you actually provide what is the message, provide the message data, like what is the exact text that you would like to show. Okay, so you will see this. Here you can see why we are reading this entity here. If I look at the keys here, sorry. So if I look at the importing parameter, I'm able to receive only the purchase document number in this signature. So I need to know what exactly the user entered from the user interface, right? That means what is the current instance that user is working on, right? So that current instance will be as part of the CDS view. So this is a root view, right, that we have defined in the behavior definition. So that's the reason we have to read from the root view, which is the current instance. So this is a new syntax that is available. So this is called entity manipulation language, so which is introduced in ABAP RESTful programming model, which is EML. So this is syntax related to EML, entity manipulation language. Just like how we have DDL, DCL, data control language. This is a new artifact. I mean the future, or whatever we call the syntax that is introduced by ABAP as part of EML, entity manipulation language. So we need to read the entities of this particular root view. We also need to mention the alias name, entity, purchase doc, and here what exactly the field that you want to read, right? So we need the purchase status with corresponding to keys. So whatever we are receiving as part of the keys, whatever the purchase document, for this purchase document, read the status from the current instance. So that exactly that means. So I'm repeating again. For this key, so what is the key? For this key is nothing but our purchase document, which contains the purchase document. And what is the status? What is the current status that is given by the user? For this instance, we are reading from the node. So we are selecting the field. What is the field that you would like to select from this root view corresponding to this keys? That means here, what is the purchase document field name, which is also a purchase document, right? So we are just mentioning for that purchase document, bring the status of this from purchase document of the key. Okay, just like how you specify key equal to purchase document, here just mentioning with corresponding to key. Whatever the fields that is inside this purchase document, bring the status for this purchase document. That is what exactly means with corresponding, because the field names are same for the purchase document keys and also in the root instance as well. Now whatever the result comes will be populated into this particular table. So I'm just dynamically putting into an internal table, which is inline declaration that we already know. So we are just, this is how we need to read the current instance of a particular purchase document within the validation. So if I click on F6, I can see the purchase document information. So for this purchase document, what is the exactly status that user entered? So which is 67. So why 67 came where there are already other fields are there, right? It's because we have mentioned in the trigger condition, if you go back to my behavior definition, explicitly we mentioned we are working on the field purchase document status. So that is the reason. Okay, so let's go back here. So you can see, so this is the information that we have received here, whatever that user entered, 67. Now based on the 67, let's look at the other steps. Let me terminate this one. Hope you are clear how to read the current instance data. If you have any problem, please text me if you're not able to speak. So all clear for step 1. Any doubts so far? Please let me know. Okay, I guess there are no questions today, very less questions. Either you guys are able to understand what I'm speaking or completely blank. Hope it's positive. Yeah, let's move back to the next step. So now we are done with the second. Let's look at the second step. So here is another new syntax. So this is another learning opportunity. Let's see what exactly this sentence means. Now, whatever the status that we entered, we need to check whether this status exists in the status table or not, right? So that is exactly we need. So what we do is we collect the statuses that is entered by the user. So in this case, right now it is only for one header, right? So we are working on one instance only. So we will have obviously one entry in our internal table. So let me enable this one. So this is my statuses table, which is a type table of our pure status table, which we already know, which contains status and text. So we are just taking the statuses into an internal table so that based on this status we'll directly hit the database and see whether if this status exists or not. What exactly we are doing? So in this purchase document we have the status information, right? So that we need to move into our particular internal table. So whatever you're doing, LT purchase doc mapping, here the database fields are different, right? So this is the field from our entity, right? Our CDS entity. This is a field within our database internal table. So we are just mapping these two fields. So whatever the values within this purchase document related to status, purchase status, will be copied to LT statuses. Okay. So we have explicitly mapped status from our entity view to our database internal table. We are just collecting into this one. Now what exactly accept star means? So usually there are more fields in my entity. Okay, so I'm focusing on only these two. So I need to ignore the rest of the mapping, right? I do not want worry about other mappings because I am only interested in status. So here we need to mention only map these two and accept remaining. So accept, that means you can also specify do not map except, let's say, purchase document. What else we have? Status text. Okay, so do not map text also. So in my table, DB table, I do not want to map other fields. I am only worried about this status. Do not worry about text. You can also mention client, what are the fields. So I'm just ignoring everything. So if you want to do not consider any other field except status, you can mention star. So that means you are avoiding remaining mapping. So that's a simple. So this is a new syntax. Like if you want to copy something from an internal table to a different internal table, which is having a different fields than the current internal table, right? So here purchase status is different in this serious entity and status is different in our internal table. So this is how you can directly map. And if you want to ignore the rest of the mapping, you can simply specify I accept star. And if you want to explicitly mention field which you want to ignore, you can mention those fields as well, like this. Okay, so here I'm ignoring rest of the mapping. So till here we're collecting the status. All we have to do is we just need to check whether if this exists in our database table or not. So this is a simple select on top of our pure status table. We are just patching everything into database table. So now I loop over my instances to check whether this is a valid one or not. Obviously here, if there is no valid status, we will not get any entries here. So when we looping over the current instance, right? This is the current instance. If you remember, we have read the data that is entered by user into this particular internal table. So we are looping over this one and we are checking if the status is in the DB or not. So if not line exists, that means there is no status with this one, whatever the user entered. So this is a user entered status, LFS PO doc purchase status. Right? So I'm just checking in this table. If there is no line exist, so as we discussed, we have to inform the framework that, okay, this is a purchase document which is having a problem, and what exactly the message you would like to show, and we have to append that to our reported in the exporting parameter. So reported exporting parameter will contain the information, so what exactly the message we are going to show, and failed parameter contains the what is the failed key. We're just appending purchase document and what are the current purchase document user working on to this particular failed exporting parameter, and also we are creating an instance for the messages. So this is how you have to create the message. So we have to have a reference lref message. Here you need to mention what is the ID and what exactly the number. So that means if I go back to my message class, so 0008 contains the text invalid status. So this text will appear on my Fiori app. So we need to mention severity here as well, which is if above behavior message severity, which is error. So this is a constants given by the standard application, so standard interface. So we can use this constant error. So this is a kind of type in our BAPI message, right? Whether it is E success. Now once the reference is ready, we just need to simply append our message here, the reference, whatever we have created message, you will append here, and also you will mention that this is for specifically for my purchase status. Okay, so you're just mentioning this is the one which is changed. Now I am just forwarding back to the user interface so that this message will be shown. So now do Control F3. Let's activate this one. So the question is, can I validate multiple fields? Yes, you can do. So all you have to do is you can specify the field values that you would like to validate. But if it is specific to different fields, it is always better to keep one more validation. Validate, suppose we have a customer field or priority, we can keep this like this. Okay, you can have a separate method for this. Okay, you can have more than one field. Any other questions, please? I'll show it in the debugging from the how exactly this is happening if you don't have anything so far. Okay, let's move on to the testing. So where do we get the new wrap syntaxes? So one thing, always the trustful resource, which is ABAP documentation. So if I just click on, let me check if it is available here. Yeah, so all you need to do is just click on F1, just like how we do in our ABAP editor, on the new syntaxes. So you will get the detailed explanation for each and every part of the particular syntax here. So you can here go ABAP entity manipulation language. So right now we just seen read entities. There is also modify entities. You can also perform actions and all, like modify entities and all. So you can directly check here. This is the the best place to go to check whatever the doubts that you have. So obviously we cannot cover everything, right? So there is a limit for what we can do. but we'll discuss the basics thing, that so that whenever you read the documentation or go through the one examples, you'll be very comfortable, so that there is no doubt. So whatever we learned so far, that is enough. Okay, any other questions? Okay, then let's move on and we'll see how our validation works. Make sure everything is activated. My behavior definition. Close this one. I'll restart from my service. I can refresh the service binding, and so that whatever the active metadata will get refreshed. Select the root view, click on preview. Click on go. So I'll go to edit mode. I'll provide invalid status here, 98. Click on save. So let's look at step by step how exactly our logic is working. So we are reading the current instance of the purchase status. I'll click on F6. In this, I'll get the status information from my CDS view. Okay, all good. Now I will collect only the status field from my LT purchase doc internal table. So this is the syntax that we need to use, corresponding with mapping except star. And if I look at this one, I can see the status field is copied into my internal table. All I have to do is just check, bring the status from my database table for the instance that is given by the user. So I have got the data. So here there are no instances exist for my status. So when I'm looping through my current instance, I'm checking if my status exists. So what is the current instance, which is 98. So right now there is no line exist in the DB with that entry. So if not line exists, so it will, the condition is satisfied. It will go inside this one. Will append the purchase document field to my file instance. So file exporting parameters, sorry, and I will also generate the message that is required to show, and append this one to my reported. So this exactly, this reporting parameter will contain the message that is supposed to show in the UI. Okay, so this is how my exporting parameters looks, and also mentioning that, so for which element you're doing, this is purchase status. Okay, I'll click on F8. Go back to my application. So here you can see the invalid status. So whatever that you have mentioned, for which field you have mentioned, which is status. So how it is coming? Because you have mentioned that here element purchase status. So you are assigning a value 01. That means this is the field I would like to raise a message. So here you also show what exactly the field message this is related to. So invalid status. So this is how you can perform multiple validations also. If you provide for priority as well, so the other message will come here. Okay. You can also see the highlight that for which one it is getting the error, which is marked in red. Okay. So I'll give the valid status and click on save. Simply do F8. So my changes have been saved. First one is created, right? My status is updated. Okay, so this is about a managed scenario with validation. Why I have gone through managed scenario for validation scenario? Why I can just show in unmanaged as well? So the main reason I have shown in the managed scenario is right now, currently, the feature is not supported. That means for unmanaged scenario, validations are not supported. So I wanted to show this on on-premise as well. So on-premise, there is we are right now it is supported only unmanaged scenario in on-premise, so you cannot do this in on-premise system. Okay, so for the reason we have created a managed scenario. So in managed only validations are available right now. So previous and the future release they will release for others as well. Okay, so this is what about managed with implementation scenario. The next one is, so this is something we'll do for as an exercise. So do not rush in for this one. So I will give you clear details because this has little complexity how we need to handle this particular determination, because it involves the entity item data as well. So that will be appropriate scenario to understand what exactly determination. Let me go to this one. So first thing, how do we implement? So we need to just add the below property in the behavior definition. You need to mention, okay, determination. What is the determination name? On modify. Okay, so that means when the user is in edit mode. For suppose, let's consider this scenario. So we have header details and line item details. If you observe in our application, there is a field which is total price, which depends on the cost of the each item, right? So I'm repeating, this particular field total price should get updated whenever there is an extra item is involved. That means suppose right now it is $1,535. Now if I create another item with $100, it should be $1,635, right? So it should be on whenever I modify that line item, this should get updated. That is the appropriate scenario for determination. So we are determining the value of a specific field based on the other instances changes. Repeating, we determine value based on the other instance changes, right? So we need to mention that determine on modify, so for which field you are doing. So whether you can also mention on which scenarios, whether it is create, update. So this is called, let me zoom in. So I want to repeat one thing. Whenever we mention validations or determination, two things we need to remember. What is the trigger condition? Okay, so trigger condition means when it should trigger, whether it is on save, whether it is on modify, or whether it is on create, update. If you look at our validation here, this is on save is the trigger condition, right? What are the fields? Trigger fields, on which field you want to do. So these are the two things we need to: trigger condition and trigger fields, if there are any. For the same determination also, trigger condition is on modify, so on which field you want to perform, and also you are mentioning the create, update during when you want to perform this specific thing. Okay. Now if you want to implement determination, similarly just like how we did for validation, determine PO key for determine on modify keys. So signature remains the same, except instead of validate we'll have determine, and the trigger condition will be modify, and also keys will be the same. So whatever you receive on determination, when it is triggered, you will receive the keys. That means you will get the purchase document. Based on the purchase document, you will read the instance of the current entity, and you can modify the data and modify this entity with the required values. So there we will come with a new syntax, which is modify entity. Because why we are modifying? Because this field change, what are the total price will be modified based on the changes that I'm doing to the item data, right? So I need to modify this entity so that whatever the changes that I did in the backend will change in the user interface as well. Okay, so so you can try on your own. Anyway we'll be providing a solution, but try to implement that one. For that, what exactly you need to do is, you have to go back to our previous model that we have created for transactional application, where we have item data as well, right? So everything remains same. You have to also implement the create association as part of this. Okay, so there are different things involved. I'll also provide you the hints and the steps to create this one, and after that, for a couple of days I'll also send you the solution as well. Okay, so we'll take this for example. Okay, so far this is what we are up to in the first session. We have discussed about managed scenario and evaluation in details. I explained each and every keyword that is part of managed scenario and why we went for managed scenario for validation scenario here, because it is not supported in unmanaged scenarios. That's the reason I had to create another application in managed implementation and show this example. So just a second. Let me take the questions before I take a break.
So Rishi, can't we use the check before save method in unmanaged scenarios for validation?
In unmanaged, yeah, that we can do in unmanaged scenario. Before save, you can keep a debugger and check whether you are able to get the breakpoint there. Because I'm not sure, because in on-premise and the cloud there are few differences. Because on-premises, I think this release in S4 2009, I believe, or 2010, they are going to release managed scenario as well. I think there you might be able to do this one. But what I suggest you is you can try to do the validation before save. Just keep a debugger there, and whatever the keys that you're trying to, receiving in that method, you can also have this exporting parameters check if you're able to raise the message. I personally haven't tried that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi Rishi.
Yeah, Chandra.
Hi Rishi, Chandra here.
Yeah, Chandra, please.
Okay, Rishi, what about the drafting mode? On premises, we can do a drafting mode before save. Can we able to do in cloud as well?
No, so this is what. So drafting scenario is recently come and just when we are starting the course, draft scenario has added to the ABAP RESTful programming model. So before that, there is no such concept in ABAP RESTful programming model.
Mm-hmm.
So we do not have sufficient time to include that in course because so exactly when I started the course, it has came.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is let me. So for those who are looking for what are the new features and all added, let me give you the reference. Yeah, you can tell me. I'll give the what are the links right now after your questions.
The other part, I'm still struggling with Visual Studio connecting ABAP the backend. I sent in WhatsApp message. I'm couldn't able to connect to the backend system. Can you please assist me? And I was told that I'll be contacted by email, and so far nobody had contacted me.
Okay. Yeah, we can check on that. So can you send an email to SAP with the detailed problem that you're facing? So you just mentioned what are the steps you followed, what is the error that we can just we can tell just by looking at one screenshot. There might be different things going on. Yeah.
I believe you're taking that class next week, right? The Visual Studio connecting the backend,
yes.
Everything will be called.
So the plan is like this. Once we are done with this application, right? So overview page application and our list report. So at the end of or before we end the training, so on the last day, we will be consuming those services from the Microsoft Visual Studio. So this is the plan.
Okay, I think maybe next week then.
Yes, right.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Rishi, Can we do the version comparison also here for the code? Means what changes we have done in the next version.
Okay, so let me check that one. Yeah, so on if you right click, there is an option called team. Let me check this one, show local history. Yeah, so whatever change that has happened so far, you can just, we have the timestamps when exactly these changes are done. Yeah, so the option is right
Yeah,
click.
thank you.
Yeah, team and combats. Yeah, let me show it for other also. So right click, team, show local history. You will get the timestamp when exactly these changes happen to this particular piece of code. You can go back to the versions. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone, please? Can you give an overview of managed scenario again? Okay, let me repeat. So for those who are familiar, please bear with us. Some of not able to understand. Okay. So managed, we have two scenarios. This is really important. See, above RESTful program itself dependent on unmanaged managed scenario. If you do not know managed or unmanaged concept in above RESTful programming model, there is no use. Like other people will treat like you don't know anything in above RESTful programming. That is the core concept. So what exactly managed and unmanaged? So managed is something, as I mentioned here, so we would go for this scenario if there is no need to create completely new transactional application from scratch. That means this is a completely greenfield implementation. If you would say, let's say there is an application, fresh application that you need to develop. Okay, so let me take this scenario. So let's say I'm already working for a company. There we have a sales order management application. Okay, which might be an WebDyn Pro application or normal SAP GUI application. Sales order management application. So I have written this entire logic, right? Like for creation, I use BAPIs. For validations or whatever that I have done for create, update, delete, in my WebDyn Pro application or SAP GUI application, we have a certain business logic which is already in my system. Okay. So far we are comfortably working with the WebDyn Pro application with already existing logic for create, update by calling BAPIs and everything. Now my customer came across and he wanted a Fiori application with some of the features in that sales order management so that they can carry out in a tablet, right? So WebDyn Pro applications are not that much comfortable to carry out in tablets or in a mobile, right? So the customer asked, like, so I wanted to carry out this application while I'm working, right? So as soon as they come across, they wanted to create a sales order or make change to the sales order, they would like to carry out that in the application. So in this exact scenario, so what I can propose is, okay, we have the new ABAP RESTful programming model, so which will support Fiori applications, right? And which is also device compatible. That means you can carry it in a mobile or laptop, because we have already seen, right, how our application looks in different devices. So once you propose a solution, and you also need to check what are exactly scenarios supported for our application, because it has to be as simple as possible. If you look at our purchase management app, we have list of line items. You can have different tabs. They can perform different operations like create, update, and validations or application specific logic. So this is a case you need to decide whether you have to go for managed scenario or unmanaged scenario. Can somebody tell me? So I have already my WebDyn application which contains some business logic. So which scenario I should go? Whether should I go for managed or unmanaged? Obviously, I should go for unmanaged, because I have already the business logic. I just need to utilize those BAPIs, the business logic, into my application, so that I'll go for unmanaged scenario, right? I'm using the existing logic. Now in managed scenario, let's imagine they want a new application. This is not at all related to the existing application. This is a completely new application. So in this case, we will create a Z custom tables, because this fresh requirement, it is not on the standard tables or whatever, and there is no business logic exist. Whatever we have to write is completely new. So what we will do, we will leave the CRUD operations to the system itself. Okay, we do not want to reuse any existing business logic because it will directly update the business custom tables that are required. What are the Z tables that we have created, right? For Z tables, we will not have BAPIs, right? For Z tables, if they are already existing, yes, we'll create, but these are the new Z tables we are creating, so that we leave to the system to update CRUD, update, delete operations, create, update, delete operations. So this is the where exactly we go for managed scenario. So this is, we leave the CRUD operations to the system, and we'll work on the focus on the business logic, right? Like how to create actions, how to put validations and all. So like I mentioned, so developer will focus on the business logic that is implemented using actions, validations, determination, etc. But whereas in unmanaged, you have to take care of code operations as well. But in managed, you do not have this pain. You will take only focus. You will focus on the business logic only, which is related to actions, validations. Okay, hope that the scenario is clear. Okay, so let's take a small break and we'll discuss about overview page and what is the approach that we are going to follow. Let me show how do you check the latest features as well. Okay, so whatever that we have discussed as part of our course, most of the concept will be available on the help documentation as well, but not the example that I have shown. The examples I have worked on separately. So this is the document. So you can just simply type SAP above RESTful programming model, SAP Cloud Platform, SAP Help. Okay, so this is the place you will get. So if you go back to the last session, what's new? So above RESTful programming model started with 1808, I believe. From here, you can check what are the new versions which are available. Okay, so this is the latest version, 2008. That means 2020 August they have released, right? Just before starting the course, where they have added a draft support for RAP business service. I will explain what exactly a draft scenario, and you can refer to this documentation and implement that draft scenario as well, because unfortunately we cannot cover this because it is very early beginning of the career. So that's what it rapidly changes every 3 months. So it is not very hard for just to include immediately in the course. Hope you understand. So you can check in the other versions also what are the new features that they have added here. Okay, all the new syntax and everything. We will also have different examples. How do we develop different scenarios? I also refer to this document whenever I get doubts related to syntax checks or anything in implementation of any logic. Okay, so this is how you can look at. So I will also, you can simply check in the Google above RESTful programming model, SAP Cloud Platform. Okay, so let's take a small break. I'll come back and we'll discuss about purchase overview app. What exactly is it? What is the approach that we are going to follow? And I'll create some simple CDS views. I will not create complete app. It is a time consuming. So we have to learn about different UI annotations as well as part of this. So tomorrow I'll be continuing the app as well. So part 1 we'll discuss today. So I'll be back in 10 minutes. See you guys. Okay everyone, I'm back. Hope you guys are able to hear me properly. Please let me know in the chat. Okay, we are good. Okay, one tip I would like to give here is list of the people who are able to hear me. Yes. See, if you want to carry out this one and if you forget to open this link, you can usually bookmark it, or what you can do is you can download it as a PDF so that you can download and keep it in your mobile or wherever. So you can simply get all the concepts or related to this above RESTful programming model. So it will be covering most of the topics that we have discussed, and you can also come across things which we have not talked in this course because it is impossible to cover everything. So but you will get an idea of how to work on the concept that you are not aware. Okay, so do not get worried if you found something which we did not discuss in the course. Okay, then let's start with the next step. So this is going to be a short session because tomorrow I'll take a full-fledged pace on this one. So let's go back to this one. Okay, developing Fiori overview page application part 1. First of all, we need to understand what exactly the overview page. So in Fiori, and so far we worked on list report transactional application, right, where we have initially a list of objects. The user can navigate to the object page, and where we have different tabs, or we can have application specific actions and everything. So that is very well suited for transactional application. So where user want to perform code operations and all. But when it comes to overview page, so here it's not related to transactional. So this is all about analytics. Okay, so user wants to get a clear view of the a particular domain, what exactly happening in this particular area. Suppose if it is related to purchase order analysis, that is the app that we are going to create, where user would be able to see what exactly the purchase documents which are pending, what are the purchase documents with status high or low. We'll see different analytical cards, list cards, table cards and all. So first we see what exactly why OVP. So especially the application which are specific to completely driven by the data. Okay, so user needs to access all information. Okay, it's not like where we can also have a filter, so your user will also get complete overview of the existing data related to any specific domain. So in our case, which will be a purchase order analysis, so user will be able to see all the information on a single page based on a role. So whoever the particular user that is going to use that specific application, based on his role, you can show the specific data in that entire single page itself. So OVPs consist of charts. You can also have filters, micro actions and everything. So what are exactly the cards that we are going to discuss, and what is the application that we are going to create as part of this? Let's have a look. So I'm going to give you the preview of exactly what exactly the app looks. So to further details, so the different pieces of information are displayed as different cards. Okay, and OVP will contain group of these cards so that user can get all the information from a multiple data sources, and he can visualize the data in each card. So let's look at the preview. So this is exactly the card that we are going to create. Sorry, the overview application that we are going to create. So first thing is first, so we'll have a filter. So as soon as user makes any changes to the priority field, let's say he clicks on priority 1, so the system will send the request to the backend to fetch the purchase orders which is having a priority high. So it will bring out all the purchase order. You can see when user need access all the information related to a specific instance. Okay, so for that we have added filters. So if you do not add filters directly, whatever the data sources that you specify, all the data will be brought into the analyzed at the backend, and related information will be shown here. So first we need to understand these filters. So filters will work on top of these remaining CDS views that we are going to create. So each card, let's look at the first one, list bar. List card, which is a bar type, and other card, which is the table card, which just contains the simple column details that we are going to show. And third one is analytical card, where we will be able to show a donut chart with priority and status. You can see there are purchase document by priority. There are 13 purchase documents. Out of them, 9 are high, 3 are low, and 2 with medium. Okay, so this is how you are going to see the donut chart, which is analytical card. And the other one is, we'll also show a card which is contains the purchase documents which are pending for approval. Okay, so we'll show it in the list card. So in order to show these cards, we have to attach a data source to each and every card. Okay, so each and every card will work on a specific data set and bring out the data. So that data set is nothing but our CDS view. So we need to bind a CDS view for each card to work on the data. So whatever the, suppose if I just created a list card and attached a CDS view to it, the framework will make a request to the data source and analyze the data, and whatever the annotations accordingly that we have specified, the list bar details will be shown, like this percentage or the green color or whatever the colors, the cosmetics changes that we want will be done as part of the metadata extension of that particular consumption view. So the idea is, what we are going to do is, first we'll create a consumption filter which contains these two fields on top of my basic CDS view, which is purchase document. And also I'll create a consumption view for budget details. So what exactly is, so how much budget it is consumed for this particular purchase documents. So for suppose my total price of the purchase document is $100. Okay, my total budget is $1,000. So how much percentage that particular purchase document has consumed? So that is the percentage that we are going to show here. So out of $1,000, $100 are consumed by this purchase document. That means, so certain percentage will be showing here, like 10% or whatever. This is for budget. And we also, once we create a consumption view, required calculation fields in the view, we'll create a metadata extension file to showcase how the data should appear in this particular card related to list card, whether it should be a bar chart or analytic. There are different graphs available, right? So that we're going to specify. Similarly for everything. So we create a ultimate goal is, we'll create a consumption view and we add the annotations and we'll map each card to that particular data source. So that's a simple idea. So main thing we need to learn is the UI annotation that's specific to analytical card, list bar, and the table card and list card. Okay, so this is the app we are going to create hopefully by end of tomorrow. So whatever we are going to see now. So if you want to learn more about this, like what are the other cards that you can work on, what you can do is, so you can go to experience.sap.com. So here we have seen different types, right? One is list report application, and we are going to also see overview page applications as well. So here, this is a place where you can check how exactly cards that you're going to use. So what are the cards are available? So you can see there are different cards: the list card, contact cards, analytical card, table cards, and everything. Okay. So if I go to analytical card, It will mention the specific details of this analytical, how it will be useful, how whether each card is reusable, and also we can see what exactly the areas of it. Okay, so I will also discuss these things. So these are the types of cards that we can have. So we are going to have a donut card, a donut chart for this specific analytical card. Okay, so this is what we are going to see. So suppose before you choose any card, okay, so first you need to understand whether this my requirements suits for this particular card. So how do you know? So this is a place you need to come here. So for my analytical card, you can see. So the donut chart represents the parts of the whole, or where the whole is always 100%. The data is displayed in rings. Okay, so just giving the details. Donut chart can only display absolute values, like absolute values like 2.4, 1.1, like it's not cannot show other decimal places. The number of fractional digits specified to annotation. The chart shows values with defined numbers decimal places. Over, let's ignore this. Use the donut chart if, okay, so this is important. If you want to visualize the parts as a percentage of the whole, okay, so parts as a percentage of the whole. Suppose here you can see revenue by main category. So we are working on you're looking at the main category. What are the types of main categories are there? So from computer system they got 7.6 million revenue. From computer components they got 3.1 million revenue. So they are looking at one component which is by category. So they are looking at the different parts such as computer OS, other details. Okay, you have one or more category items that you want to plot. You can also have a filter. How do you want to suppose if you, let's look at my page here. Here you can see by priority, also by status also. If you want to have more than one category, you can also specify it here by specifying this. This example you cannot find in this here. So this is something which we have worked on. So do not use donut chart if you want to plot -0 values. This is not required. Now also it is always recommended to show if you have more than 4 categories. It is not recommended to show because it will look clumsy. Let's suppose I have added further another 4 categories. So my donut chart looks clumsy. So it is always recommended to have up to 4 or up to 4. Okay. So I'm just giving you how do you need to decide exactly which card you need to use. So this is a place where you can come and check the details when to use or when you should not use. Okay. So we'll start with the filter view creation for today, and tomorrow I'll be showing how do we create the series views for the analytical card and line items as well, and we'll also add annotations and we'll consume that in Microsoft Visual Studio tomorrow. Okay, now let's create a filter view. So for this filter we need to have another series view which is mapped to these 2 filters. Okay, let's create that one. It is a simple one, so I have already created. Let me show you. The Wishy star OVP. So simply it contains, we have this particular series view, right? I Rishi purchase doc. So my main goal is to show the filter bar which contains priority and PO status as the selection fields, and also these 2 fields should contain the searching functionality. So when I search for priority, it has to also provide me the help as well. So what I will do is, let me create that one. So I'll right click here. I'll create the filter view first, consumption view. So data definition. Filter bar for OVP. I'll keep it in my package. Click on define view, finish. So I need to mention the dictionary view. Just please give me a moment, please. Here I'll specify Z or SH OVP filter. So I am creating on top of my basic purchase document view, which I have created earlier in this particular course. So LJ or SHI purchase doc. Let me navigate to that one. This is the basic view. Yes, this is a basic view on top of our physical table that we have created. So I will get. So here I need only the fields which are related to my filter. So I'll consider only those two. So anyway, we should have a key. First, let me add that one. Purchase document. I'll explain what exactly I'm trying to do. Let me activate this one. So I'm creating two dummy fields. Okay, so these two dummy fields will be binded to my filter. Once user enter any value in this one, based on this particular filter, my filter will be applicable to all the remaining CRSUs that are available there. So first we'll just create the filter, and I'll show how this filter will be applicable on the remaining CRSUs. What are the remaining CRSUs? The CRSUs that I'm going to create for list bar, table card and all. So first we'll just have a container for this filter. So simply I'll define a calculated field for priority and status as well. So we have a F4 help for this one as well, right? So I need to create an F4 help for this priority and status as well. And also I need to show this field as a as a selection field as well. So first what I will do is I'll make this as a selection field. And this one also I'll make it a selection field. $10 and $20, so that when I map this to a filter bar, this will show up with F4 help icon. So when you provide this F4 help, on click of F4 I need to get the information as well. So for that we need to use, what is the annotation? Can anybody tell me that I need to use to show F4 values? Anyone please, you can ping in the chat. What is the annotation I need to use to show F4 help values? We have covered it earlier. How do we show F4 help? What is exactly the annotation we need to use? Anyone? I need the annotation name. Exactly, yeah. @ consumption value help definition. So we need to provide you @ consumption for status. I want to provide the value help @ consumption dot value help control space definition. So value help definition. So here you just specify what exactly the entity you are going to show in the F4 help. I'll say entity name of the entity. So I think we have already create a consumption view for status. Let me give that. Yes. And what is the element that you want to bind it, which is status. So initially when I create a overview page application, it will ask whether you don't want to have a filter for this. So this is a CSV view, I need to map it. So those two fields will appear in the filter bar. So if I go to this one, my value help, here you can see what I just did is I just simply selected from a basic view and I provided object model text element, also the searching capability as well, so that as soon as I type, I'll get the help as well as the list, right? Suggestions. So this is how you need to provide. So I need to create the F4 help for my priority as well. So let me quickly do that. So for those people who are not aware how to create the value help, so simply you can follow this. Again, I'm just showing. This is for PO priority F4 help. Please ignore the typos. Next, choose the package, finish. CRSHPO Prio VH value help. I need to mention my source table, priority. I'll get all the fields, save it, activate. So in order to enable search capability for this consumption view, I need to add the searchable true. You need to also mention what is the text for this priority. This is the one. Sorry, this is the text for this priority. Let me check text element, I believe. Text element. Save this. So at least one element has to be set to default when you enable search. So if I enable this search, so user when is, let's suppose priority light, when I type low, automatically I'll get the suggestion. So we are enabling the default search on this element. Okay, you can also enable on priority. So when you click on 1 or 2, based on that, the search we will also get the suggestion. So I'll enable for my text. So if I execute this one, you see the low and everything. So our CSV is good. So this is the F4 help I am going to provide attached to my filter bar. So let's look where is the filter one. Yeah. So I have clearly shown you how you need to exactly provide a F4 help here. So entity and name of the view, which is priority, and element. What is the element? Let me look at the element. Priority, this is the value. Okay, so my filter consumption view is ready. So when I consume this in Microsoft Visual Studio, it will ask for the filter bar. This is a serious view I need to provide, and it will show as a filter. As soon as I search for anything, the suggestions will come on, and I click on F4, all the values will be shown. Okay, so this is how the starting point. This is just a starting point where we create the filter bar. The next session we'll see how to create budget list card and purchase document table card and everything. We'll also learn about UI annotations as well. So far, any doubts? Anyone, please? Any doubts so far? I think I've added to a different view. Please let me know if you guys have any doubts. Let me make this correction. Priority. Yeah. Let me check the chart. So why dummy field here? See, usually when you execute this series, if you do not show any dummy field here, so you will actually get the values, right? What are the values that you get? So we don't want the actual values when you consume this series view. Widget has to be empty. So these values will be given by the user when we are consuming from the OVP. So this is why we left it as blank. So whenever user enter those values, that will be populated here. And based on this search filter that is given, this filter will be applicable to on top of our consumption views. There we have the status priority fields, and this filter will be passed to those consumption views, whatever that we have specified. So you will get an understanding tomorrow why exactly this is required. So our filter bar do not require the values from the consumption view, so we just need the container. So we just map these fields to the filter, the selection fields, and once this selection field applied, these fields come as a filter to my consumption views, whatever the user entered values. Okay guys, I think we are good. So what exactly we will do is tomorrow we will create these other 4 CDS views which are required, and we will work on, we'll see how to create, consume this one from Microsoft Visual Studio, so that you'll get a clarity on this one as well. So hopefully we will be able to complete this by tomorrow, these applications, and once we are done, we'll move forward with a new topic in our RESTful program, which is queries, and also we'll talk about GitHub and all. So for those people who are looking for a code for all the examples that I'm discussing in GitHub, some of you asked me, so you can go to this profile which is Above for Geeks, where I have all the repository objects. So if I look at this one, let me go to the repositories. So this is the one, right now it is private, I'll make it public. So whatever the example that we are seeing here, right? So all the code you can check here, or you can import into your Eclipse as well, but we haven't shown that yet. So we'll also cover that topic, how to use GitHub from ABAP or from cloud as well. So you can go to source file, you can check if you want to check any specific CDS view, you can directly click on that. Here, let's, for example, you can see the code here. Okay, you can go to this account Above for Geeks, you can get this. Okay then, so hope you are clear with whatever the topics that we have discussed today, and we'll see tomorrow if you do not have any doubts. Hopefully we are good. So I'm going to close this session.
Yeah, Rishi, sorry, just a quick thing. So I'm actually facing one error while testing my service binding. So I sent an email. Yeah, so the error is like in the context of data services, an unknown internal server error occurred.
Okay.
Yeah, so
we have to look at the object. Can you show me the object here? So, just a second. Guys, if you do not have any further doubts, please feel free to drop from the call. So I will continue with people who are having any doubts. Okay. Yeah. So can you tell me the object name? I'll have a look.
Yeah, sure. So ZA31 underscore SB underscore
Is it
PO details.
on-premise
That's
or?
yeah, it's on premise. No, not on premise. It's on cloud.
Z31
Underscore SB service binding. SB underscore PO details. Yeah, that's my service binding. I could able to see this metadata as well.
Okay. This is the main view,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, correct.
The CPU details, document, time. Is this your service binding, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the problem is the date format that you are given, right? While you're uploading the data, it has an invalid format. So that's the reason. So upload the
Okay, so
date value
how
as.
you went to this point? Because I didn't find it in the console.
Okay. So first of all, there is one setting we need to check. Okay, so let me explain this one. Is everybody on the call? Yeah. Okay, guys. One tip I would like to give here. So usually when we are running this service, if you go back to our on-premise systems, right, we have a gateway client where we can check the errors like error log. We have a transaction called IWFND error log where you can check what are the errors which are occurred. So, but in cloud, when you're working with this, if you come across this kind of errors, one feature that you need to enable. So first thing is there is a feature called a feed reader. So for that we need to open the view, search for feed reader. Okay, here you need to add the feed. So for cloud I would like to add the feed. That means if anything goes wrong in my at the backend system, so I would like to show that log here. So you need to right click on your project, add feed query. So it will load what are the queries that is possible for that particular one. So right now we are interested in SAP Gateway Error Log. So you select this one and click on next. Automatically whenever there is error occurred, so when you click on SAP Gateway Error Log, you will get this folder here, SAP Gateway Error Log. You can check here and see what are the messages errors that are happened when you are executing the service. Okay, if it is related to the backend. So once you add that feed reader, you'll get this SAP Gateway Error Log section. Under that, you can check what are the errors which are there. Okay. Hope this information useful. Please
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
add that
got it.
to your feed reader. You can check. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, I will make the repository public right away, so you guys can access that repository and look at the examples if you have any doubts. So I'm closing this session. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep, thank you.